Hello and welcome to this week's episode of My CP Does Not Define Me, where we focus less on the dis and more on the abilities of what we can do. Join us every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, live on the Disability Global Broadcast and Facebook Live. Looking forward to seeing you there.
What's up, everybody? It's D to the J with a roll away. It is Wednesday, February 2nd at 2 p.m., and it's that time again for episode 82 of My CP Does Not Define Me. Hope everybody is doing well and hope everybody can hear me properly. I know I did a video yesterday, had a little bit of trouble with sounding like a robot, so I don't know if that was my internet connection or what that was, but hopefully we got that fixed. Hey, Cindy, how are you? Like to welcome everybody coming into the show. We are live on Facebook, StreamYard, and on the Disability Global Broadcast. So welcome everybody as you come into the show. Please do us a favor, leave us a comment, let us know how you're doing. Well, I have brought back a very special guest, a very dear, personal, good friend of mine, and we had him on the show about 6 months ago, believe it or not, and we decided to bring him back for round two. It was so good the first time, so why not do it again? So I want to welcome Mr. Don Hunter, my best buddy, one of my best buddies, and we talk regularly. Don, how are you, bud? Welcome back to the show.
Well, like I said to you earlier, we're hibernating for the winter. Watch the snow come down. So, not going too far.
Got the snow den all cleaned out for hibernation, huh?
Pretty well. Yeah, Groundhog Day today too.
Oh man, did the groundhog see a shadow?
Well, he did. Well, we're not too sure. There's either going to be 42 more days of winter or 6 weeks.
Not sure which is gracious. Wow.
Not sure which is shorter.
Well, hopefully we can get 42 days and get that winter out of there. I know y'all had a lot with the snow plows, with the snowstorm coming in too.
Yeah. Anyways, so. Yeah, other than that, not much going on. Like I talked earlier, a year ago today, actually, I was going to have my shoulder replacement done.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked it so much, they had to go ahead and do a repair a month later. So going back first part of April for checkup. So we'll see how everything goes there.
So just to kind of refresh, let's go back a little bit. If you, for our fans that are coming in and those that are listening, kind of refresh our memory and just share a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, and kind of get into that. And we'll get into the shoulder there because I know you were talking about that as well. So we can kind of get caught up as to where you are.
Yeah. So anyways, I was about 22 months old back in 1953, just prior to the polio vaccine being available. Mm-hmm. And I contracted polio in August. I ended up, I'm in southwest Ontario, a little town called Wallaceburg. It's about a 75-mile drive from Detroit and just south of Port Huron in the States, in Michigan. So anyways, I ended up in the London Hospital, Children's Hospital, for 3 months in isolation. And then another 6 months in the polio ward, physiotherapy. And I came out with wearing 2 leg braces, a back brace, and using crutches. Mm-hmm. And at that, I was just looking at it yesterday, actually. And 1953, there was 15 million people in Canada total. And there were 9,000 cases of polio. Mm-hmm. The same year, and there was 500 children that passed away from polio in 1953.
Wow.
And the vaccine came out, I think it was developed in 54, 55, 1955.
I think you told me it was 55. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's when it was actually put out on the availability.
Right. Mm-hmm.
There's 1.8 million children that received the vaccine as a trial. And fortunately, it worked.
And just to refresh the memory, the polio was progressive, correct? It was more.
Well, it seems like at the time, people did recover.
Mm-hmm.
And later on in life, they started to experience similar issues like they did when they first had it,
Right.
like muscle cramps, loss of your mobility, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. So
And,
so as you get older, it kind of attacked the system. The symptoms
correct. Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
symptoms attack the system. Yeah.
Right. And I think we talked about. I came across a person down California.
Mm-hmm.
She does the elephant rescue.
Yes.
And just to run it by some of the new listeners, she made a comment about Alan Alda that was on MASH,
Mm-hmm.
and I sent her a message to saying, well, she was in one of his stand-in in one of his movies, and she
Right.
liked to do artwork,
Mm-hmm.
and she so anyways he stopped her to admire her artwork that she was working on, and promoted her or suggested to her that she follow up on the her artwork. So she started this elephant rescue type thing, and I mentioned to her about him having polio also,
Mm-hmm.
and it turned out that her mother had polio too, so which was
Wow. So they had a lot in common.
A lot in common, correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. I mean, I just to kind of, and I know when you were younger, you had some of the changes with the braces, and I believe I asked this on the last show, but just to kind of refresh, as you started getting older, and going from younger to teenager to adulthood, how did polio affect you differently in those stages?
Yeah, it's yeah, I've noticed a major change in about the last 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
where you're getting notice muscle weakness and muscle cramps, that sort of thing,
Right.
and of course, getting older too, it contributes to it. So,
Well, I tell you, the numbers keep going up; they don't go down. That is for sure. And time
well,
does pass quicker.
I guess better to keep going up than not.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
I'll get with you on that. So the muscle fatigue is a bigger deal,
right? Yeah,
deal.
and like I say, it was just the last about the last 10 years that it became really noticeable.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I just a couple people saying hi to us. We got Cindy coming in saying, hey Cindy, how are you? Hey Josh, welcome to the show. Hey Christina, how are you? Just to so did it affect in your younger stages? Did it affect fine motor skills?
Not really. No, it was just weakness. Well, my one leg, like I mentioned, had to wear a leg brace on it,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually, like my back, I was able to get rid of the back brace,
Mm-hmm.
and the leg brace on my left leg, it came back, and at one point, I think it was probably about 14, 15 years old, and I could get around like without my leg brace on the right leg,
Mm-hmm.
just using my left leg. But like I said, as years went by, that became less and less. Whereas now I can't really support myself on my left leg.
Yeah. So the brace is
deteriorating. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, that's what I was talking about by, the amazing part of all of this. You look at a disability and people see on the outside and they say, oh, well, he's got a limp, or oh, he struggles with a walk, but they can't see the inside. They can't see the deterioration. They can't see, what you go through on the inside, the pain, all of that. And I think it's great that you're out talking about it, because from 53 to now, you look at how far medical has come. There wasn't a lot of information back then,
No, not really. There was, and as far as anything being handicap accessible, that was unheard of back then.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You just, you just managed to do what you could.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, going into the handicap accessibility, when you got your house, you did a lot of improvements on that to make it
When
more
we
handicap accessible.
Yeah, when we put an addition on, and we put in extra wide doorways, downstairs bedroom, that sort of thing. So sort of looking ahead, what might be needed.
Right, and I
As
think
opposed to,
that's the mindset that we need as a people. Now we got a question from Christina. Let me pull the question up here, and it says, "What type of braces do you wear? Assistive technology is great. Sometimes we don't want to use it, but it helps. I went from one crutch to two crutches and back to one, uh, or excuse me, one to two crutches, and my back is a lot better." So she wants to know, what type of brace do you wear?
yeah, it's I don't know exactly what they call it, but it goes from the hip down, and there's a joint. There's two like two steel splints that go down, and then there's two. Well, there's a like a cuff at the top where your hip is, and then there's two other little cuffs that one behind, well, midway between your hip and your and my knee. And then there's another one between my knee and ankle.
Yes,
And then there's a like a kneecap type thing that straps over top of your knee to hold your knee straight.
right.
And that was one thing that I think I'd mentioned to you, is about information on equipment to aid handicapped people.
Yeah.
And like originally, I had a leg brace that the only shoes that you could wear were like Oxfords, with the leather sole, and they had to attach a like a metal bracket to the to the shoe. And in order to change your shoes, you needed a screwdriver and everything to switch them out. And then I came up with an idea in the early 70s about fitting the brace inside the shoe. And there was somebody in Wallaceburg here that did fiberglass work. So I had a piece of metal bent that would go attached to the brace and go underneath your foot, and then up the other side. And then we took some plasticine and formed a mold of my foot, and he made a fiberglass thing that he attached to the metal part,
Wow.
which would all fit into the shoe. So I could wear running shoes, like the dress shoe, different types of boots, and so on. So, anyways, I went down to get a new leg brace made a couple of years later. So it'll be about 73. And the person showed me that apparently they've been making that similar type brace since 1948.
Wow.
So all those years, I could have benefited from that particular brace.
Now let's talk about a little bit. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about what you just talked about. So you actually came up with the idea in 1970 to have this mold made to go inside with the metal and mold of your foot, and you can basically do any kind of shoe you want once it was made to go over the brace. And you said it's been available, apparently, that same kind of brace since 1948. And again, that lack of knowledge of not knowing, and that's the thing, when you don't know the information isn't out there, it's harder to grab a hold of. So it's so vital for a show like this, because I did not know that in 1948, because I wasn't even a thought in that time. I was, a gleam in my dad's eye, I guess, there. But, it's amazing that, the technology that was there, but not out. I mean, not well known. It was known about, but not spread across the nations as it should have been.
Right. And over the years, I used, I just got crutches from the local drugstore, which were meant for short-term use.
Right. The underarm, under the arm crutches.
Correct. Yeah, they were wood, and
Oh yeah.
and like I was out at a grocery store number of years ago, and like the sewer grate, I just happened to step in that, and of course fell over. My crutch went through the grate, fell over, and the crutch, like it just snapped. And if I'd have landed on a certain way, like the broken end of the crutch could have gone right through me.
You look at crutches nowadays, they make so many different styles, and a great comment by Christina here. We'll get that in a second. But talking about the crutches, when I first got my crutches are metal, and those things weigh a ton. Okay, they're the loft string. They're not, you put your wrist in the cuff and walk, not under the arm. Those are the loft string crutches. But mine, right, I've had since I was, I want to say 16. So I haven't had a new pair of crutches since I was 16 years old. And I look online and I see all these light ones and blue ones and green ones and titanium ones, and they're so much lighter and so much more. And I'm like, man, look at what's come out. But again, going back to the brace thing, when I got mine, we always had to get shoes that were 3 sizes too big because you couldn't fit them over the braces. I mean, and it was just, but again, this is what Christina said. She said shoes for brace wearers have always been hard to find. About 3 years ago, Nike started making easy on shoes, and other companies followed. Finally, we have more options.
Right. Yeah.
So that is a story and a half, man, especially with the crutches. And did you eventually switch to the metal kind, or?
Well, actually, I was just going to bring that up. Have you ever come across Thomas Fetterman?
Fetterman? No, I don't believe I have.
Okay, well, I came across him through the March of Dimes, and he had polio also, and he makes all kinds of different crutches. And it's got to be about 25 years ago, I got a set of crutches from him, and they're made out of cherry wood.
Really?
And I've, like I mentioned about going through the sewer grate with the drugstore crutches and how they snapped. Well, same thing happened to me with the cherry wood, and my whole weight went on the cherry wood crutches, and there was a little, just a little mark on the crutch itself, and they were strong enough to hold my whole weight.
That's a well-made item. Go ahead.
And he also makes like the tops, like crutch tops, the rubber tops that go under your arm.
Yes.
Plus the rubber tips. And I got a set of crutch tips from the drugstore one morning at 9:00 in the morning, and I took them back 5:00 that night. They were totally worn out.
Oh.
So anyways, I got the crutch tips from him, and I could get about, back when I was working, they'd last a good, I'm guessing, almost a year.
Yeah, that's about...
So anyways, I went out to, we got what they call Canadian Tire Store, like they sell tires and so on. So I went out and bought a little tire off a trailer and had somebody cut get a circular drill bit and cut them the size of the crutch tip in circles. And I took crazy glue and glued the circle out of the trailer tire onto the crutch tip. And it's good for 100,000 kilometers now, or miles.
I tell you, I knew you were gonna say something. Wow.
Now one nice thing about it, the tread on the tire, it goes crossways instead of a circle. So any moisture that gets caught in there, it will drain off faster than the circular ones.
And we're hitting a couple of good topics here, especially with crutch tips. When I walk, I walk with my crutches out in front of me, so I don't walk with my crutch tips flat. So I have a lot of problems slipping. Now, your idea with the taking the circular drill bit, that is phenomenal. I've got comments coming in right here. Josh said not a bad idea. A couple of comments from JP we'll get to in just a second. But the thing I wanted to mention to you, there was a website that designs crutch tips, and my roommate actually brought it to my attention, called sportaid.com, and they basically took that idea that you are talking about, but they made a crutch tip. It's called a tornado crutch tip, and it literally has this like almost like a gritty sandpaper kind of grit at the bottom to grip the concrete and cement. But your idea seems that it would hold even stronger than that.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned about you have your crutches sort of out in front of you on an angle.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I do when I use my crutches, I swing through.
Right.
Instead of taking, they say that you're supposed to, when you take a step with your left foot, then your right crutch is supposed to go with it.
Right.
And then vice versa, when you're supposed to take a step with your right foot, then your left crutch is supposed to go in unison with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I just swing through.
That's the motion that my roommate has. I don't have the upper body strength. Well, it's not just the upper body strength; it's the trunk motion to hold myself up to move the crutches back out with the swing through. There's a good there's a couple good comments here. Let me just JP said, when I broke my metal crutches before, I was lucky I didn't break my arm, because your crutches don't go with you, and if you, depending on the type you have, like you said, you can snap, and some of them will go right through you. But this is the comment that I was gonna bring up here. When I used to wear long leg braces, I was normally wore a size 10 US, but because of the braces, I wore a size 14 and a half wide. Very difficult to find as a kid. Have to have them custom made. So, I mean, you're going back to the shoes to fit the braces. And, of course, to your tread tire idea, Josh said not a bad idea. But we're going to have a lot of crutch users now going out finding those little trailer tires.
If you need a trailer tire, you better get it now.
Yeah, man, I tell you that. Now, okay, so in Canada, it snows a lot, obviously. How is it with the tread tire on the crutch in the snow?
You have to be careful.
Okay.
And the ice is worse than the snow.
Yeah, you get a lot of black ice too.
Yeah. But even so, like anytime you go anywhere into a store or summertime, whatever, you're always looking down to see what's in front of you.
Yeah.
And like I was years ago, I was in the grocery store, and there was just a little tiny pebble on the floor. It wasn't even maybe the size of half of a pea.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't see it. I just happened to put my crutch on it. Well, I went down.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't take much.
Well, my big issue, again, I walk out with my crutches out in front of me. If there's any water or whatever, any kind of wetness, and that crutch tip hits it right out. I mean, you can't stop it.
No.
I again, Christina coming in here. JP Jackson, my normal feet size are 6.5, but braces and shoes are 9 wide. Totally understand the struggle. I think with medical equipment, I think it's amazing, the two inventions that you had. You have to look at when you're buying medical equipment, everything is not right for everybody. You have to really find what makes it work for you, and then adapt it even more to make it. Sometimes it has to be made your ideas. That's a great idea. I had never heard of taking a drill bit, drilling out a trailer tire, and putting a tread, and I'm going, man, why hadn't that been sold to a multi-million-dollar company, somewhere? And living rich, high on the hog, with 2 houses and everything, because that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, like I say, mind you, I don't walk as much as I used to on my crutches, but still, it was last a lot longer. So, yeah.
So
Now getting back,
are you still using the cherry wood crutches now, Don? Or is
yes,
are
I
those
am.
the one you
Yeah,
use? Good.
yeah, not as obviously not as much as I used to, and so yeah, but I still have them, and like I say, they got to be 25, 30 years old now.
Wow. So
Yeah.
so you had a surgery recently on your shoulder. It was a year ago today, you said.
Right.
Now what was the surgery for? What did they intend to do?
Well, they did the range of motion was getting to be a big deal, and the pain from the joint was just worn out from using crutches for so many years, and they did a total shoulder replacement, and it was called a reversal, where they put where your socket was, on the top of your shoulder. That's where they put the ball for the joint. And then they put the socket where the ball was, so everything is just flipped around.
In order to be able to get a better
apparently,
range.
doing it that way apparently it's stronger than the conventional way, but well, it's like any surgery. It's never the same as what the original parts are.
That's so true.
And it's depending on how busy a day I have had, how much moving around I do, and so on. And some days are worse than others. And like I've heard, like these people that they go out and like cosmetic surgery, for instance, and it doesn't matter. Whatever surgery you go in for, there's a risk involved.
Infections. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And you have to and the thing too, whenever you have a major surgery, whether it's shoulder, whether it's knee, whether it's foot, hand, it's going to change something about how you do things, because
you're
going to have to relearn what your shoulder feels like, what it feels like to move it, what it's like to put a shirt on. You can't just pick up where you left off and everything is fine. You have to relearn it. Was it difficult for you, like to get the shirt on and learn how to go back to it, or how was that?
Well, as far as putting, let's say, a dress shirt on, that's a bit of a struggle because neither one of my shoulders were, as far as range of motion, not that great. And like I say, putting a dress shirt on, and I don't right now. I don't think there's any way I could tie a tie. I just can't. Couldn't get my arms up high enough to button up your top button on the top of a dress shirt even.
Well, so now for that, I'll tell you a trick. The way I do it is I actually keep my 2 buttons here unbuttoned. Okay.
Right.
I keep my cuffs buttoned.
And then
I have, this is a zip up tie. Okay. So so what I've got is I've got a zipper in the back, and you just pull it up like that. Now, the thing about the dress shirt, getting it on, instead of having to put your arms through it and swing it around, I just like a pullover. I pull it over my head, and then bring your arms this way instead of out this way, through, and then just go over the top and sit up so that I can just drop it down. The only thing you have to worry about is getting it caught on the back of the chair. So that's the one thing, but that will help you. And then I have a button extender because I have a 26-inch neck that I have to, because if I sneeze, the button extender will pop and go flying everywhere. That's kind of, but man, I tell you, it whether you've got CP or polio or it's always something, man.
It's always challenges.
Yeah, and you've got to find ways around what is difficult. Oh wow, Cindy commented on her total knee replacement. I've found I found that out with my total knee replacement, and I'm now finding out how much abuse it can take with all my falls. The amazing thing is, they have all this technology now where they can replace a body part, or they go in, but they're putting a new part in a model of person. So you've got to remember they're putting this here, and they're saying, okay, this is going to work like your shoulder socket would, or just like your knee socket would. But then you get it, and you're like, no, this is not. So it can, the surgeries can help, but you have to adapt to what the part is. I feel like I'm part Chevy. I got pins and needles and this and that and hips and, scraped off bone and screws in this and bolts in that. I'm like, good Lord, am I Frankenstein on steroids or what? I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah, but really.
So there was a lot of pain there. Now, you were saying earlier, did it help with the pain some at all, or what? I mean, has it reduced?
Yeah, somewhat, but I notice in the mornings, some mornings you wake up and like we were talking earlier, you got muscle cramps. You just basically ache all over.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then once you get up moving, it's not quite as bad. So
let's ask the big question: do you feel the surgery was the right one?
Well, let's put it this way. They talked about my other shoulder was almost as bad as what my left one was.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think I'm going to bother doing the right shoulder. So I'm going to hold off on that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's it'd be a tough decision. Let's put it that way.
Was there another option of surgery to do?
Not really, no.
Mm.
No. Now, I did have, years ago, they did go in and, they did a scope thing, where they go in and clean up the loose, any bone chips or that type of thing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, they did that. And it helped a little bit. But like I say, it wasn't, anything like that isn't a 100% solution.
My friend Christina, she said, being productive is about taking care of yourself. And I know when she was having back problems, she wants to go into a shop and she says, can I get an overhaul, new engine, new back, new knees, new feet? Just pick me up next week, disconnect my brain, fix the stuff, pick me up next week and reboot me. I'm like, literally, I don't want to come out as the bionic man. We can rebuild him. We have the technology. Unfortunately, we just ran out of the second half. So I'm just like, what am I supposed to do? But I love it because it's there is a risk with surgery. And I've had 9 of them. And they help. They helped a lot. But you look at it now, and the problem is they do surgery on children while they're growing. And a lot of doctors now have stopped performing surgeries on children unless it's needed until they grow, because when they grow and the surgery's done, they don't grow properly because something the doctors have done to hinder that. And you're kind of darned if you do and darned if you don't with the medical profession, because especially if you're younger, and then when you get older like us, and you say, I need this and the adaptive, and I need this type of chair that rises up, and I need this type of chair that rises back, and the medical profession looks at you and goes, oh no, you don't, you can't. I'm like, don't tell me what I don't need. I know what I need. That's right. That's why it's, but it's harder and harder, I think, to I want to say convince the insurance companies, because they are bound and determined to tell you what they're not going to pay for and try to deter you from getting what you need. And it's a tough situation.
Right. Yeah. And, just before I forget, getting back to that crutch tip, you said about the tornado crutch tip.
Yes.
Now, what company was that you said was?
It is the company that does it. Christina, if you're still with me, or JP, if you want to jot this down in the comments, It's SportAid, www.sportaid.com, and it's tornado crutch tips.
Okay, now that Thomas Fetterman that I mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if they bought him out or something, because he used to make a crutch tip called the Tornado.
They may have.
I haven't,
mm-hmm.
yeah, I haven't heard. I haven't been in contact with him for quite some time,
Mm-hmm.
but I just wondered if they bought him out or took over or something.
Yeah, sportaid.com, tornado crutch
To check that out just for interest.
is what that, and I can give that to you after the show too.
Yeah.
Great comment here, JP. But if I had all my surgery when I was older, I don't think I could have handled it as well as I did when I was younger. But I do get your point.
Right.
Like I said, I can see why some surgeries are done when you're younger. But the problem with things like that, hamstring releases and heel cord releases, if you don't stay on top of physical therapy, and you don't stay on top of stretching, and you don't stay on top of taking care of yourself in that way, when you get older, you are going to pay for it by not stretching. The older you get, the tighter you get, you lose mobility, flexibility. It is so important to take vitamins, CoQ10,
Right.
iron. The vitamin gummies are helpful. Physical therapy is important. I'm 40 years old, and I look at it now, and I go, I went to physical therapy until I was like 24, and then I stopped because I got tired of it. Because you get tired of people pulling on you and moving you around.
I was just gonna say that.
And it's just, and you're like, I just don't want to do it anymore. But you come to find that if you can develop some kind of home routine, there are home gyms. There are gyms that you can hang on doors and use resistance bands. It's so important to keep that
Right.
strength and that flexibility up, because when you don't have it, it is very, very difficult once you lose it to get it back again.
Right. Yeah, like I say, I mentioned to you the other day there, we'll mention it right now since you're talking about exercising and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter had ordered a treadmill. The guy delivered it yesterday, and I answered the door in my wheelchair, and for some reason he kind of looked at me a little odd. I don't know why.
When I read that, I had to set my phone down because I'm just visualizing the guy going, "You're not gonna get on that, are you?" I mean, just like you just what I can roll. Come on. I mean,
I should have waited until you had a sip of your pop to say that.
Oh, geez, I would have spit it all over the screen.
Another advantage of using crutches though
Mm-hmm.
is if you're in a bar and you've had too much to drink and you happen to fall down, they won't cut you off because you could just say, "Oh, I slipped because of my crutch."
Sorry about that. That wasn't intoxication. That was my crutch. Just letting you know. Of course, I couldn't say my ABCs backwards when I came in here, so don't ask me to do that. But and this right here, I'm glad, JP. I didn't get tired of physical therapy. I just couldn't afford it. Here's the issue, and I want to say this. Hey, Deborah, how are you? Thank you for being here, sweetheart. Appreciate it. I want to say this. That is a big issue with medical equipment. People end up not getting it because they can't pay for it. And insurances, unless you have a doctor that knows what to write and how to get what you need, it is very difficult. So a lot of times you end up going without because of the money not being there. There are grants that are out there everywhere. You have to look and you have to dig. There are ways around insurances saying we're not going to pay for this. There are doctors that care enough about their patients to say, look, we're going to write it this way because you need this, because I'm certain if you get this, you'll do better. And you've got to be able to push through. DJ, you're laugh. DJ, you're
I
laugh.
just
But
saw that.
he's right. I've done that before in a bar. Well, I can tell you, I've messed with a couple people. I remember going to a restaurant, eating a meal, and I transfer out of my chair when I ate the meal, and the manager come over and he asked me, he said, "How was everything?" I said, "Well, everything was great, but the only problem is I can't feel my legs." Oh my God, I can't get out of here. My chair's sitting over there behind the table and he's freaking out. And I'm like going to get up, falling on the floor. He goes, "I swear I wasn't like this when I came in here." So I end up, getting in my chair, and I end up laughing, messing with him. And he's like,
Yeah.
"I did not expect that." I'm like, "Trust me, it's okay. You've had your laugh with it." I probably scared him to the point he peed himself. I'm not sure. But,
yeah. A couple of years ago, my sister and my brother-in-law and a cousin of ours, myself, the four of us went down to Florida, and we're in this, we're out on the patio, and there was a guy performing, like playing the guitar and stuff, and my crutches were leaning against a post. Well, my brother-in-law, he got up and happened to knock the crutches over onto the floor. Of course, everybody heard the noise, and they looked over at him, and he was bending over to pick my crutches up, and I yelled out, "It's a miracle."
Oh, no.
I should have passed the collection plate.
Well, we're getting to that part in our show where the laughter's picked up just a little bit. If you'd like to donate to our cause. Oh, wow.
But getting back to for a second about the cost of equipment. Now, over here, we've got what they call the assistive device program, which is through the government, and they pay 75% of say a wheelchair, your leg brace, that sort of thing.
Right.
And then there's the Rotary Club, March and Dimes, or depending on where you work, you could have insurance that will pick up the other 25%.
Yeah. And but again, and this is where you kind of get the, just kind of what we're talking about. Some of our viewers have never heard of these things. Some of our viewers, because there is a lack of information about cerebral palsy, about polio, about disabilities that happened back in the early times that have been pushed back and forgotten about,
Right.
Because there are newer disabilities that come out every day, and there are different disabilities that come out every day. And the ones that have been around that there's no cure for, people kind of put them on the back burner like they don't exist,
Right.
like it's not. But see, that's the problem. They do exist, and there are ways around things, but you have to find the information.
Right.
And this right here, Deborah, I have a friend who's an attorney here in Florida, or that had a stroke and hated how the insurance stopped his therapy. So he's now running for U.S. Senate. See, that's the change that I was talking about yesterday. I did a video yesterday. In order to change this country, we need to get people who are disabled, who know about disabilities, on boards in the government, within the political parties, because we as a community and we as a people need to stand up for ourselves, because nobody's going to stand up for us but us. Right. And if we come together and we fight as a group for what we need and what we want, we can make it happen. And I love the fact that you point out the information. There are organizations out there that are willing to help. There's the Shriner organization. There are CHKD, Children Hospital of the King's Daughters, here. There are the Wounded Warrior Project. There are organizations that St. Jude that help thousands of people a day. St. Jude, you don't get a bill. Your children don't get a bill for their cancer and the things they go through. And these disabilities don't care about your age. They don't care about your size. They don't care about your ethnicity. They don't. It takes over, and it's hard to fight and say, well, I need to get this, but I don't have the money. A person that is disabled, that has a legitimate disability, I'm not talking about, you just tired and lazy and don't want to do it. I'm talking about when you have a legitimate disability, you deserve to fight and you deserve to get what you need, because too many people are told, no, we don't have the money for this. They got the money for it.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is penny pinching, and a lot of it is bean counters going, well, we can make this in plastic instead of making this in metal, and make it, and it doesn't last as long. A wheelchair that was made back in the 90s and 80s would last years. Now, you got chair parts falling apart and stuff falling off. They want to charge $85 for a cup holder. $85. I said, nope, dollar store. Bolt that bad boy on there. Thank you very much. Got my own cup holder. $1. That's all I need. I mean, it is really, really tough.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know about over where you are, but where we are, a disability, you can get a tax write-off of, I think it's around $5,000 deduction from your income tax. And I've mentioned this to a number of people who have applied for it. And this one person in particular, she had arthritis really bad and had hip replacements and so on. And I told her about it. She never heard about it before. So she applied, and I think she got a retro of, I think it was about $15,000.
Now, was she in Canada as well?
Yes, she was. I worked with her at the police station, and so anyways, she applied for it. Now, there's firms out there, like lawyers, and they advertise, like how they can get you this disability tax deduction, but they take like 30% of your first return. So she would cost her about probably about $5,000.
Right.
But
see, now
but she didn't need it.
Right.
Because she was legitimate. The doctors filled out the proper paperwork and everything. So.
And see, I'm so glad you came back on this show, because you said a word that I like, a legitimacy. Okay, let's understand what we're talking about here. I know we've got a little bit of time left. Man, this hour has flown by. Legitimacy and disability, you got to understand. There are so many people. There are a lot of people that are trying to jerry-rig the system. You can't jerry-rig the system, okay?
Right.
It's the only system we have, okay? We have to do the best we can with what we got, but that doesn't mean that we can't make it better, okay? For the people that need it, you can't get it. For the people that don't need it, it's easier for them to get it because they lie and they cheat and I'm not going to do that because I'm not that type of person, okay? Yeah. If I'm going to get something, I'm going to get it honestly because I need it, and it's going to be I'm one of those people that is not going to try to make it harder on the system. The reason they ask you, are you in a wheelchair 15 times on a disability form, is because so many people have lied and said yes and not been. And then you go in and you expect to get what you need and you don't get it, and then you're mad about it. There are people that have disabilities that need it, that can't get help. And especially in your case, I believe that every person that is older, when you get up in the 50, 60, 70 range, I believe that they should be able to get a person to come in to help them, especially if they have a disability where they have trouble with mobility, whether it's polio, whether it's CP, whether it's spina bifida, whether it's MS, all the disabilities, you should be able to have someone come in and help you and get aides that know what they're doing, that are qualified, not people that you're pulling off the street going, you want me to pick that up off the floor for you? I don't, if you want to help out, great, but it is almost, I know here, it is almost impossible to find a good caregiver that is legit and knows what they're doing. And that is a job that's more than a job. A caregiver, you have to be a special kind of person, in my opinion, to be a caregiver, you have to be a special kind of person because you have to have a heart for people. And I
Right.
think that most of the caregivers now are looking for that big payday to sit down on their butt and do nothing. That's not how caregiving works. You can't mop the floor, make the bed, make the dinner, and sit down and do nothing. We are
Right.
people. We need to move. We need to shift. We need to go to the bathroom. There are thousands of people that are left in their own stuff because caregivers don't want to change them or help them because it's hard to roll them. Nobody said the job was easy, and
Right.
I'm glad that you have the medical equipment that you need, that you know about these programs, and I'm so glad that you have shared part of your story with us. I love you to death. You're a great individual. You do so many good things, and your service record has been phenomenal. I know you were with the police department and have worked with them. I believe you talked about the Wounded Warrior Project as well a little bit. We had mentioned some of that,
Right.
and you
Yeah.
just your story with polio and how you fought and you got through it. It's an honor to have you on the show. I've really
No. Like I say, people. Well, I've had people like you probably had the same thing too. You go somewhere using your crutches.
Mhm.
Oh, I know what it's like to use crutches. I used them for 6 weeks when I twisted my ankle.
Yes, you
And
get a lot of that.
whereas like people talking to people like yourself and others, you're on the same level.
Mm.
So, just
Well,
one.
Go ahead.
No, I was just. We're almost done. I was just going to ask you one question. When somebody says check your zipper, what do you look at first? Your tie?
Well, that depends. I mean, because normally I don't wear these unless I'm doing the show. So if they say check your zipper, I'm looking down, going, oh god. And then you're in public going, I didn't know. So, oh man, maybe I should wear my tie around my leg and really freak them out. But
Trick for sure.
If I want to ask, I do have one question before we end. We got about 9 minutes or so. You looking at yourself now and what you've accomplished, and the things that you've done. I'm not sure if I asked you this on the last show or not. If you could go back and say any message and talk to your former self as a child or as a teenager, what would you go back and say to your former self?
I don't know. That'd be probably what should have what I would have liked to like looking back and back then like there's people that I've met through the Facebook post polio and their parents didn't even tell them that they had contracted polio.
Yeah.
And there was a camp for people with disabilities back years ago. And I didn't go to that. And because it was, like thing, like people with polio, like they could pull you down type thing.
Mm-hmm.
But looking back, I sort of wish that I'd gone to there just to compare notes and talk to like about issues that like we have today. And same with that post polio page on Facebook. Like we've talked about, like online discussions about various disabilities, which didn't really discuss growing up.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the strongest, that's well said. I think one of the strongest ways to learn is communication and is talking to people and learning their stories, what they went through. When people share their stories on shows like this, and this is why I ask that everybody that watches this show to share it, because somebody might not know that there's a grant in Canada. Somebody might not know that you can get a tax deduction. Somebody might not know that there are cherry wood crutches out there that can be made. They might not know. And sharing a story like this helps somebody else to realize that they can move from point A to point B, or they can go from point A to point B. It just takes a little bit of time and just go with it and learn. You've got to learn about it in order to talk about it. And if you don't take the time to talk about it and do what you're going to do and learn from other people, you're not going to get it. JP said I would tell myself to invest in Google and Apple. Well, you would be a rich somebody by that time, I can tell you that.
Now, when you were in school, we had guidance counselors and so on, and like when I was in school, there wasn't the opportunities. Like if you were at a disability, then you were categorized in a certain group, and that's what you're supposed to do type deal.
Right.
Whereas today, it's a totally different outlook. Like people with disabilities, they're what would you say? Are encouraged to look at different avenues.
They're more encouraged than they were. There's still a lot of the bias, and there's still a lot of the discrimination, and still a lot of the you can't, you won't, but there is more of the look at this, try this, do this, you can do this. So it is better, but it's definitely not complete. We still have to keep working.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if you saw it. There was a boy that was born without any arms, and there was coaches, and he wanted to jump up on top of like a Coke case, like the old wooden boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And these people were coaching him, and somebody made the comment, like, why would they put him through that? Well, they put him through that, and he did achieve it. So it increased his self-esteem and so on. But people were criticizing, like, why would you make a kid without any arms go to that stretch? Well,
if they want it,
exactly,
they're going to go for it. Why not?
And like that was something he wanted to do, so it improved his self-esteem and everything. So,
what a great show! I want to thank you, Don, for being part of the show today. Guys, and thanks everybody for tuning in and leaving comments. Thank you guys for tuning into this. I can't believe 82 shows have already happened. This is just continuing to grow. We will be available next Wednesday on the Disability Global broadcast on Facebook Live and on StreamYard. I always say I'm D to the J with a roll away, and if you can't be good, be bad, but be good at it. Look forward to talking to you next week. Don, just stay with me just a minute. I'll be right back to you. Guys, take it easy, and we'll see you next week for the next exciting episode of My CP Does Not Define Me.
All right, everybody. That's going to do it for this week's episode of My CP Does Not Define Me. As always, you can catch us every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on the Disability Global broadcast and Facebook Live. If you haven't already checked out our YouTube channel, My CP Does Not Define Me, we post all of the show videos in our MyCP playlist. I'm your host, D to the J with the roll away. And if you can't be good, be bad, but be good at it. We'll see you next week.